April 28, 1789, Lieutenant William Bligh woke to the cold steel of a cutlass at his throat. Fletcher Christian and his mutineers had seized HMS Bounty, and within hours, Bligh found himself cast adrift in a 23-foot launch with 18 loyal men. No charts, no chronometer, just 3,600 nautical miles of open Pacific Ocean between them and the nearest European settlement. Most expected them to die within days. Instead, Bligh accomplished one of history's greatest feats of maritime survival, navigating his overcrowded boat through 47 days of storms, starvation, and hostile waters to reach safety. Only one man died during the voyage itself, a testament to skills that transformed certain death into legendary survival. Tools to trust, skills that last. This is Bushcraft Arsenal. Number 1. Dead reckoning navigation without modern instruments. Bligh possessed only a quadrant, a compass, and a nautical almanac, no chronometer for precise longitude, no charts of the waters ahead. Yet he navigated 3,600 nautical miles with accuracy that astonished Dutch authorities when he arrived at Timor exactly where he intended. His dead reckoning system combined celestial observations with meticulous speed and course calculations, updated continuously despite the boat's constant motion. The technique required extraordinary mental discipline, maintaining mathematical precision while managing physical exhaustion, hunger, and the constant stress of leadership. Bligh had to estimate their speed by watching debris float past the hull, calculate wind, drift by observing wave patterns, and compensate for current by noting the boat's sideways movement relative to distant landmarks. Each observation had to be recorded immediately, despite wet conditions that threatened to destroy his logbook. The mathematical calculations were performed in his head while simultaneously managing the boat, directing the men, and monitoring weather conditions that could change their course requirements within minutes. The psychological pressure was immense. Every calculation had to be perfect because there was no margin for error. A mistake of even a few degrees could send them hundreds of miles off course, missing Timor entirely and sailing into empty ocean where death was certain. Bligh cross-checked his position estimates using multiple methods, comparing celestial observations with estimated distances traveled and known landmarks when they became available. Modern GPS has made these skills nearly extinct, but military survival schools still teach dead reckoning as backup navigation. Sailing instructors charge thousands for courses covering techniques that Bligh perfected under conditions that would break most modern navigators. His ability to maintain accurate position estimates while managing 18 starving men in a storm-tossed boat demonstrates navigational mastery that few contemporary sailors could match. The ocean was vast and merciless. One navigational error meant death for all. Comment "Dead Reckoning Master" if you could navigate 3,600 miles without GPS. But navigation meant nothing if the boat sank in the next storm. Number 2. Advanced storm survival and boat handling techniques. The launch faced multiple powerful storms, with gale-force winds and mountainous seas that should have swamped the overloaded boat. Bligh's storm survival system kept them afloat through techniques that combined seamanship with desperate improvisation. The boat's freeboard was so low that waves constantly broke over the gunwales, requiring continuous bailing that exhausted the men while they fought to keep the boat properly oriented to the seas. Bligh understood that the boat's survival depended on maintaining proper angle to the waves. Too much beam to the seas would roll them over, while running directly before the waves risked being pooped by following seas. His approach involved positioning the boat to ride the waves rather than fight them, using sea anchors improvised from spare clothing to maintain proper heading, and organizing continuous bailing rotations that kept the boat from being swamped. The men worked in shifts, with some bailing while others managed the sail and rudder, creating a system that functioned even when exhaustion made individual thinking nearly impossible. The bailing rotation had to be precisely timed. Men could only work at maximum efficiency for short periods before exhaustion made them ineffective. The weight distribution was critical. Too much weight forward or aft would make the boat unmanageable in heavy seas. Bligh constantly adjusted the men's positions and the placement of supplies to maintain proper trim, understanding that survival depended on keeping the boat balanced and responsive. The carpenter's chest was repositioned multiple times to optimize weight distribution as conditions changed. During the worst storms, men had to shift positions every few minutes to keep the boat from becoming uncontrollable. The sail management required constant attention as wind conditions changed rapidly during squalls. Too much sail would drive the boat under or cause it to broach, while too little sail would leave them wallowing helplessly in the troughs between waves. Bligh had to make split-second decisions about sail configuration while managing everything else, demonstrating seamanship that kept them alive when most boats would have foundered. Modern storm survival techniques taught in offshore sailing courses follow principles that Bligh developed through necessity. Coast Guard rescue specialists study his methods for managing overloaded vessels in extreme weather. His understanding of how small boats behave in heavy seas saved lives through knowledge that most recreational sailors never acquire, even with modern safety equipment. The ocean was a relentless enemy. Each storm could be their last. But staying afloat meant nothing without water to drink. Number 3. Precision water rationing and hydration management. With only 130 liters of water for 19 men over an unknown voyage duration, Bligh implemented a rationing system so precise that it sustained life for 47 days while maintaining enough reserves for emergencies. His calculations had to account for varying weather conditions, physical exertion levels, and the medical needs of men suffering from exposure and malnutrition. The daily water ration was measured to the ounce, distributed at specific times to maximize physiological benefit while maintaining psychological morale. Bligh understood that irregular rationing would create despair, so he maintained consistent distribution even when supplies ran dangerously low. The system included provisions for collecting rainwater during storms, using every available container to supplement their dwindling stores. Men held their mouths open during downpours, catching precious drops while simultaneously bailing to keep the boat afloat. Every piece of cloth was used to collect rainwater, wringing out even the smallest amounts into their water containers. His hydration management went beyond simple rationing. He monitored each man's condition for signs of dehydration, adjusting individual rations when medical necessity demanded it. The psychological aspect was crucial. Men needed to believe the water would last, so Bligh maintained confidence in his calculations even when privately uncertain about their chances. He kept detailed records of water consumption and collection, constantly recalculating their prospects based on weather patterns and estimated time to reach safety. The distribution system had to be absolutely fair to prevent conflicts that could destroy group cohesion. Bligh measured each man's ration personally, ensuring that no one received more or less than their share. The timing of distribution was carefully planned to provide maximum psychological benefit. The morning ration gave men something to look forward to, while the evening ration helped them sleep despite their thirst. Military survival experts charge over $1,000 for courses teaching water management techniques less sophisticated than Bligh's daily practice. Desert survival specialists study his rationing principles, particularly his understanding of how to maintain hope while managing scarcity. Modern survival psychology recognizes that water rationing systems must address both physical and mental needs to prevent panic and despair. Thirst was a constant torment that drove men to madness. Comment water discipline if you could ration your last drops for weeks. But water without food would only delay the inevitable. Number 4. Starvation, survival, and caloric optimization. Bligh's food rationing system sustained 19 men for 47 days on provisions intended for 5 days, demonstrating caloric management that kept them alive while maintaining enough strength for essential tasks. His calculations balanced minimum survival needs against the energy required for sailing and navigation, creating a system that preserved life without completely destroying physical capability. The daily bread ration was reduced to 1 ounce per man, barely enough to prevent complete starvation but insufficient for normal activity. Bligh supplemented this with carefully distributed portions of salted pork and the daily rum ration that provided both calories and psychological comfort. Every scrap of food was accounted for, with nothing wasted despite the men's desperate hunger. The distribution had to be precisely equal to prevent conflicts, with Bligh personally measuring each portion to ensure fairness. The psychological impact of seeing their leader share the same meager rations helped maintain morale during the darkest periods. When opportunities arose to supplement their diet, Bligh maximized nutritional value through techniques that extracted every possible calorie. Raw seabirds were shared equally, with organs and bones consumed for their nutritional content. The birds were caught by hand when they landed on the boat, providing crucial protein that helped prevent complete physical collapse. During their brief stop at Restitution Island, he organized systematic foraging that gathered berries, oysters, and shellfish to provide essential vitamins and minerals. The timing of food distribution was carefully planned to maximize both physical and psychological benefits. The morning ration provided energy for the day's work, while the evening ration helped men sleep despite their hunger. Bligh understood that regular mealtimes created structure that helped maintain sanity during the endless days of deprivation. His understanding of nutrition under starvation conditions prevented scurvy and other deficiency diseases that could have killed them even if they had enough calories. The variety in their diet, limited though it was, provided essential nutrients that kept their bodies functioning. The salted pork provided necessary fats, while the occasional fresh foods supplied vitamins that prevented complete nutritional collapse. Modern starvation survival research validates Bligh's approach to caloric management. Military COE programs teach rationing techniques based on historical cases like his voyage, particularly his understanding of how to maintain morale while managing extreme scarcity. Survival schools charge thousands for courses covering nutritional strategies that Bligh developed through necessity while managing 18 starving men. Hunger gnawed at them constantly, each man dreaming of food while slowly wasting away. But individual survival meant nothing if the group collapsed into chaos. Number 5. Crisis leadership and psychological management. Bligh maintained discipline and morale among 18 desperate men for 47 days, preventing the psychological collapse that destroys most survival groups under extreme stress. His leadership system balanced authoritarian control with participatory decision-making, understanding that men needed both direction and hope to survive circumstances that would normally drive groups to madness or mutiny. The watch system he implemented provided structure that gave men purpose beyond their immediate suffering. Regular duties, navigational tasks, and boat maintenance created routine that prevented the psychological deterioration that accompanies prolonged crisis. Men had specific responsibilities that made them feel essential to group survival rather than passive victims of circumstance. The rotation of duties ensured that everyone contributed to their survival while preventing any individual from becoming overwhelmed by responsibility. His approach to morale management included maintaining optimism about their chances while being realistic about challenges ahead. Bligh shared navigational progress with the men, giving them concrete evidence that their suffering had purpose and direction. He calculated and announced their daily progress, showing them that they were getting closer to safety even when conditions seemed hopeless. The daily rum ration served as both physical sustenance and psychological reward that marked time and provided something to anticipate. The psychological pressure of leadership under these conditions was enormous. Bligh had to project confidence even when privately uncertain about their chances, maintain discipline without triggering rebellion, and make life-or-death decisions while managing his own fear and exhaustion. His ability to remain calm under pressure provided stability that kept the group from panicking during the worst moments. He understood that hope was as essential as food and water for survival. The men needed to believe that their suffering would end, that their efforts had meaning, and that survival was possible. Bligh provided this hope through his own example, his navigational expertise, and his unwavering determination to reach safety. Modern crisis leadership training studies Bligh's methods for managing groups under extreme stress. Military leadership schools analyze his techniques for maintaining authority without triggering rebellion, particularly relevant given his previous experience with mutiny. Corporate survival training programs charge thousands for courses teaching psychological management principles that Bligh perfected while facing life-or-death consequences daily. Despair whispered constantly in the endless days and nights. Comment, crisis leader, if you could hold 18 men together through hell. But leadership required tools, and they had almost nothing. Number 6, improvised tool, creation and resource maximization. With minimal equipment beyond basic sailing gear, Bligh created tools and systems that extended their survival capabilities far beyond what their original supplies should have allowed. His approach to resource maximization transformed every available material into something useful, demonstrating improvisation skills that turned desperate scarcity into functional capability. The carpenter's chest became a waterproof storage system for their precious sea biscuits, protecting their primary food source from the water constantly sloshing in the boat. Spare clothing was converted into sea anchors and bailing equipment, while ropes were repurposed for boat repairs and rigging adjustments. Nothing was discarded without careful consideration of potential alternative uses. Every piece of cloth, every length of rope, every scrap of wood had to serve multiple purposes to maximize their limited resources. The transformation of personal belongings into survival equipment required both technical knowledge and psychological acceptance of their desperate situation. His most crucial improvisation was using his magnifying glass to start fires during their brief landfalls. This technique provided hot food and psychological comfort that boosted morale while demonstrating resourcefulness that inspired confidence in his leadership. The ability to create fire from minimal resources gave them capabilities that seemed almost magical to men accustomed to conventional fire-starting methods. The hot meals they prepared during their stop at Restitution Island provided both physical nourishment and psychological relief that helped sustain them through the remaining weeks at sea. The boat itself required constant improvisation to remain seaworthy. Bligh used available materials to repair damage, reinforce weak points, and modify the boat's configuration to improve its performance in heavy weather. The men's clothing was used to patch leaks, while pieces of the boat's equipment were repurposed to create more effective bailing tools and sail handling equipment. His understanding of materials and their properties allowed him to see possibilities that others missed. A piece of cloth could become a water collector, a sail repair, or a bandage depending on the need. Rope could secure equipment, create sea anchors, or be unraveled to provide thread for repairs. This flexibility of thinking was essential for survival when conventional solutions were unavailable. Modern survival instructors teach improvisation techniques based on historical cases like Bligh's voyage. Bushcraft schools charge hundreds for courses covering tool creation methods that Bligh developed through necessity. His understanding of how to maximize limited resources demonstrates principles that remain relevant for contemporary survival situations, particularly his ability to see multiple uses for single items. Every scrap had to serve multiple purposes. Waste meant death. But tools were useless without the knowledge to use the ocean itself. Number 7. Advanced weather reading and tactical decision-making. Bligh's ability to read weather patterns and make tactical decisions based on atmospheric conditions kept them alive through storms that should have destroyed their overloaded boat. His weather prediction system combined traditional seamanship with careful observation of cloud formations, wind patterns, and sea conditions that provided advance warning of dangerous weather. The ability to anticipate storms gave them precious time to prepare the boat and position themselves for survival. The decision to avoid most islands, despite their desperate need for food and water, demonstrated strategic thinking that prioritized long-term survival over immediate relief. After the attack at Tofua, where one man was killed by natives throwing stones, Bligh recognized that hostile populations posed a greater threat than starvation. The choice of the known dangers of open ocean over the unpredictable risks of island encounters required courage and strategic thinking that most leaders would have lacked. His route selection through the Pacific Islands balanced the need for sheltered waters against the risks of discovery by potentially hostile populations. The choice to navigate through the Great Barrier Reef required precise timing and weather assessment, threading the needle between crushing surf and protective coral that could either save or destroy them. The passage through the reef was one of the most dangerous parts of their voyage, requiring perfect timing and weather conditions to avoid being smashed against the coral. Weather reading in the Pacific required understanding of local patterns that differed from European conditions. Bligh had to learn to interpret cloud formations, wind shifts, and sea conditions that indicated approaching storms or changing weather patterns. The ability to predict weather changes hours in advance allowed them to prepare for storms, adjust their course to avoid the worst conditions, and take advantage of favorable winds when they occurred. His tactical decisions extended beyond weather to include route planning, resource management, and risk assessment. Every decision had to balance multiple factors: their current condition, remaining supplies, weather prospects, and the risks of various alternatives. The ability to make these complex decisions while managing immediate survival needs demonstrated strategic thinking under pressure that few leaders could match. Modern meteorology validates many of Bligh's weather prediction techniques, particularly his ability to read storm patterns from cloud formations and wind shifts. Offshore sailing instructors charge thousands for courses teaching weather assessment skills that Bligh mastered through experience. His tactical decision-making under pressure demonstrates judgment that most recreational sailors never develop even with modern forecasting technology. Nature held all the cards. One wrong decision, and the ocean would claim them all. But reading the weather meant nothing without the physical strength to act. Number 8. Physical conditioning and health maintenance. Despite extreme malnutrition and constant exposure, Bligh maintained the physical capability necessary for sailing, navigation, and leadership throughout the 47-day ordeal. His approach to health maintenance under starvation conditions preserved essential functions while managing the inevitable physical deterioration that accompanies prolonged survival situations. The exercise regimen he implemented included dancing and physical activities that kept men mobile despite cramped conditions and weakening bodies. This wasn't recreational activity, but essential maintenance that prevented the muscle atrophy and joint stiffness that would have made them helpless. The exercises also provided psychological benefits that boosted morale during the darkest periods. Men who maintained some level of physical activity were better able to perform essential tasks and resist the despair that could have destroyed their will to survive. His medical management of the group included monitoring each man's condition for signs of serious deterioration, adjusting duties and rations when individual health crises demanded intervention. The treatment of injuries from the stone attack at Tofua demonstrated field medicine skills that prevented infections and complications that could have proven fatal in their weakened condition. Bligh understood that even minor injuries could become life-threatening when the body's resistance was compromised by starvation and exposure. The maintenance of personal hygiene under impossible conditions helped prevent disease and infection that could have killed them even if they had adequate food and water. Bligh encouraged the men to wash with seawater when possible, maintain their clothing as best they could, and attend to wounds and sores that developed during the voyage. These practices required discipline and effort when the men were barely able to function, but they were essential for preventing medical crises. His understanding of how the human body responds to starvation and exposure allowed him to recognize dangerous symptoms and take corrective action when possible. The ability to distinguish between normal deterioration and life-threatening conditions helped him allocate their limited resources to those who needed them most, while maintaining the overall health of the group. Modern survival medicine recognizes the importance of maintaining physical function during prolonged crisis situations. Military medical training includes techniques for health maintenance under starvation conditions that parallel Bligh's methods. Wilderness medicine courses charge hundreds for training, covering medical management principles that Bligh applied while facing conditions that would challenge modern emergency medicine. Their bodies were failing, but their minds had to stay sharp. Comment, physical discipline if you could maintain fitness while starving, but individual health meant nothing if they couldn't work together. Number 9. Group dynamics and conflict resolution. Managing 19 desperate men in a 23-foot boat for 47 days without serious conflict required understanding of group psychology that prevented the interpersonal explosions that destroy most survival groups. Bligh's approach to conflict resolution balanced individual needs against group survival, creating systems that channeled frustration into productive activity rather than destructive confrontation. The watch system provided natural separation that prevented personality conflicts from escalating into violence. Men who might have fought under normal circumstances were kept busy with essential tasks that made cooperation necessary for survival. The structured routine created predictability that reduced stress and provided framework for managing disputes before they became dangerous. The rotation of duties ensured that no one felt unfairly burdened while giving everyone a stake in the group's success. His approach to resource distribution avoided the favoritism and perceived unfairness that typically destroys group cohesion under scarcity conditions. Every man received identical rations regardless of rank or personal relationship, creating equity that maintained group solidarity. The transparent rationing system prevented suspicions and accusations that could have led to mutiny or violence. The psychological dynamics of survival groups under extreme stress typically lead to scapegoating, leadership challenges, and factional conflicts that can destroy the group's ability to function. Bligh prevented these destructive patterns through careful management of group interactions, fair treatment of all members, and maintenance of clear authority structures that provided stability without triggering rebellion. His experience with the mutiny on the Bounty had taught him valuable lessons about leadership and group dynamics that he applied during the open boat voyage. The ability to maintain authority without provoking resistance required a delicate balance between firmness and flexibility that few leaders could achieve under such extreme conditions. The cramped conditions made privacy impossible and forced the men into constant close contact that would normally lead to conflicts. Bligh managed these tensions through careful scheduling of activities, fair distribution of space and resources, and maintenance of discipline that prevented small irritations from escalating into major confrontations. Modern team dynamics training studies historical survival groups to understand how leadership prevents group collapse under extreme stress. Corporate team-building programs charge thousands for courses teaching conflict resolution techniques that Bligh perfected while managing life-or-death situations. His methods for maintaining group cohesion demonstrate principles that remain relevant for contemporary leadership challenges. 19 men, one boat, endless tension. Any fight could kill them all. But cooperation was meaningless without a destination. Number 10. Strategic planning and adaptive decision-making. Bligh's strategic planning balanced immediate survival needs against long-term objectives, making decisions that optimized their chances of reaching safety while adapting to changing circumstances that constantly threatened their plans. His ability to maintain strategic focus while managing daily crises demonstrates planning skills that kept them oriented toward salvation rather than mere survival. The decision to attempt the 3,600-mile voyage to Timor rather than seeking help at nearby islands showed strategic thinking that prioritized probable success over immediate relief. This choice required calculating their chances of surviving the ocean voyage against the risks of encountering hostile populations, choosing the option that offered the best long-term prospects despite greater immediate hardship. The strategic assessment had to consider their supplies, the boat's condition, weather patterns, and the men's physical and psychological state. Bligh's analysis concluded that the open ocean, despite its dangers, offered better survival prospects than the unpredictable risks of island encounters. His adaptive planning system allowed for course corrections and tactical changes while maintaining strategic direction. When weather conditions or supply situations changed, Bligh modified their approach without abandoning the overall objective. The ability to remain flexible while staying focused on the ultimate goal prevented the strategic drift that destroys most long-term survival efforts. The planning process had to account for multiple contingencies and changing conditions that could invalidate previous decisions. Bligh constantly reassessed their situation, recalculating their prospects based on new information about weather, supplies, and the men's condition. This continuous planning process allowed him to make informed decisions even when circumstances changed rapidly. His strategic thinking extended beyond navigation to include resource management, group psychology, and risk assessment. Every decision had to consider its impact on morale, supplies, and their long-term survival prospects. The ability to balance these competing factors while maintaining focus on their ultimate objective demonstrated strategic thinking that few leaders could achieve under such pressure. The communication of strategic decisions to the men required careful balance between honesty about their situation and maintenance of hope for survival. Bligh had to share enough information to maintain credibility while avoiding details that could destroy morale. The men needed to understand the plan and their role in its execution without becoming overwhelmed by the magnitude of their challenges. Modern strategic planning methodologies incorporate decision-making frameworks that parallel Bligh's approach to managing uncertainty while maintaining direction. Military strategic planning courses teach adaptive decision-making techniques based on historical cases like his voyage. Business schools charge thousands for programs covering strategic thinking under pressure that demonstrate principles Bligh applied while facing consequences that most executives never encounter. Every choice could mean life or death, but one final decision would determine everything. When the Dutch authorities at Kupang saw Bligh's launch enter their harbor on June 14, 1789, they witnessed the conclusion of one of history's greatest survival achievements. 18 of the original 19 men had survived 47 days and 3,600 nautical miles in an open boat, arriving nothing but skin and bones, but alive. Bligh's combination of technical seamanship, psychological leadership, and strategic thinking had transformed certain death into legendary survival. His skills proved that human capability, properly applied, could overcome circumstances that seemed impossible to survive. Let me know in the comments which of Bligh's survival skills impressed you most. Was it his dead reckoning navigation across 3,600 miles without modern instruments, or his crisis leadership that held 18 desperate men together for 47 days? See you in the next episode.